I am so inspired by what I saw yesterday in Washington, D.C. We're going to play some clips of that here. There were mass protests, thousands, more than 5,000 Jewish Americans, according to Mondo Weiss, and others gathered at the National Mall. And Rashida Tlaib spoke, Cori Bush spoke, protesting, demanding a ceasefire, saying that this will be not in our name was one of the hashtags and slogans that these progressive Jewish groups were using to call for a ceasefire and say end to the massacres in Gaza. Here is Rashida Tlaib speaking at that rally. And just want to say I am in awe of her bravery, because it has been on the front lines of threats and accusations by crazed Republicans. Exactly. And it's not going to stop. And yet she refuses to back down. And her staff, too, also, like, the way that they interface with law enforcement, and they have to rely on like things like the FBI to follow up on things like that. Yep. And, you know, there's a tremendous amount of bravery, not only by Rashida, but everybody working on her staff. Here she is.
I wish all the Palestinian people would see this. I wish they can see that not all of America want them to die, that they are not disposable. They have a right to live. They didn't ask to be born in occupation. And so I just want to thank you on the bottom of my heart. The dehumanization has chipped at my soul, and I can't imagine what it's made so many other people feel. So you all being here to speak truth, because the warmongers are out, y'all. They are ready. They want to kill and not stop. It's pure insanity. I still remember the cry of Maya, who's being dragged out of that festival, crying for her father. But just like poor Shama in Gaza, who is number one in her scores. I don't know if you know anything about Palestinian culture, but it's a big deal that somebody from Gaza could score number one on her. You know, it's like the valedictorian for the whole Palestinian people. And both of them are victims. They're victims of the oppression, of the violence. They both deserve to live. I don't care what their faith is or their ethnicity. Maya didn't deserve to be targeted. Neither did Shaman deserve to die. And that's the common humanity that we all have to remember, because they're trying to take it away from us.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure it doesn't happen. Not on our watch. I'm going to be real with you all. My colleagues, many of them, I usually don't talk smack about them. No, I'm usually considerate, because I don't like them policing me, so I don't police them. But as an American, not just as a member of the United States Congress, I am ashamed. I am ashamed that they're saying, not yet, maybe next week. Not yet, Rashida. Maybe in a couple of days. How many more have to die?
That's the question. I mean, the death toll that we know, and it's got to be much higher. I mean, there are bodies under rubble. 3,800. Yeah. And counting. How many will satisfy the bloodlust of the Israeli government? We're talking 5,000?
The answer they have is more.
10,000?
More.
20,000? What's the threshold for these members to call for a ceasefire? 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. How much blood? Like, is there some sort of, I don't know, leader amount? Not to be crass, but this is what we're talking about here. I wish that we had representatives that all had the bravery that Rashida Tlaib and the rest of the squad has. I mean, they've been pretty consistent on this. The 13 that signed that ceasefire resolution, including AOC, Jamal Bowman, Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar.
I would say shout out to Greg Kassar, because he has not been great on this issue, throwing BDS under the bus in the campaign, but I was not expecting him to sign on to that ceasefire, and I'm glad he did, and good on his staff for pushing him on that.
Exactly, especially because he signed previously in the days prior that we support Israel essentially unconditionally resolution. So this was a welcome about face from him on that front, or at least an attempt at kind of winning back some of that goodwill. But yes, it's just not enough. And let's play Naomi Klein here as well, who spoke, because as I mentioned, many of those protesters, I mean, this was organized by progressive Jewish groups like Jewish Voice for Peace and If Not Now. There were thousands of Jewish Americans saying this is not representative of what we want. We do not want this. We want a ceasefire. And it's important to elevate those voices, because there are real forces in our politics and in the media that want to conflate Zionism with Judaism. And frankly, that is an anti-Semitic conception, because Jewish people are more than the more nationalistic impulses or expansionist impulses of the Israeli government. It's reductive at the very least,
it's
and it's anti-Semitic at the other end.
It serves Israel's national interest.
And why, of course, then to that point, that's why you see someone like Ron DeSantis and the Republican Party engaging in it. Do you think that they've suddenly come to this issue in a way that's like egalitarian and not bigoted? Are you kidding me?
Right.
And the rabbis, the 24 rabbis that got arrested, they're standing firm in their morality. The other activists, the other Jewish activists that got arrested and protested as well, they understand that they're the ones who are being morally consistent on this front.
And the Israelis themselves, who have to go into hiding, like the one journalist, for opposing the bombing of Gaza.
And Naomi Klein is another person who, I don't like to have a ton of heroes, but in this business, she's somebody that I look up to, especially as a woman. This is her speaking at those demonstrations yesterday.
I have never seen anything like this in my history of Jewish anti-Zionist activism. It's been decades. We used to be tiny. We are huge and growing. We have a sacred responsibility to engage with our parents, our grandparents, our uncles, our brothers and sisters, and try to save their souls, to keep them from indulging in this quest for bloody vengeance. We are here because we will not let our fears of anti-Semitism be manipulated in this way as cover for war crimes and colonial land grabs, and to foreclose on the possibility of a political solution, which will only come with an end to occupation, with an end to apartheid, with true Palestinian freedom and self-determination. We will not use the fact that many of our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents were refugees from genocide to justify making hundreds of thousands or even millions of new Palestinian refugees. These are not our leaders, not in the Knesset with its so-called unity government, and not here in Congress, which reconvenes now in part in order to approve new money and new weapons to send to Israel for its genocidal attack on Palestinians.
Genocidal. I mean, she speaks with incredible clarity, as she always does. Some of the protesters, Washington Post reported that they were waving signs, "Our blood is the same color. My grief is not your weapon. Zionism is racism." Much of what Naomi Klein said right there. And the more and more that message gets out there, the more and more it's going to become untenable, hopefully, for the Biden administration to continue with this position. Because, frankly, I understand that he has to make some sort of... he has to promote Netanyahu in public in order to make certain pleas behind the scenes. And some reporting said from local Israeli papers that Biden was sitting in on the war planning meetings, which...
I better hope it doesn't go really poorly then, because it's going to look bad.
Well, it sounds horrible on its face, but it also, from Biden's perspective, is likely an effort to attempt to mitigate the most genocidal impulses of this Netanyahu government.
Yeah. So
we're getting to a point though where, I mean, Biden needs to. It's over trying to just do that soft power behind the scenes. He needs to come out strongly for a ceasefire and an end to the bloodshed, which is completely, obviously untenable. And before we head to our guests, I did want to play just some footage of the actual protests as well. These are some of the hundreds of pro-Palestinian demonstrators that are in the Cannon House building in Washington, D.C., chanting "Not in our name."
Hundreds of whom have been arrested, I believe, since then, right?
Yep. Amazing. Wonderful. And if you want to get involved, everybody should go to Jewish Voice for Peace, and if not now, because I know that this is not the end of their activism on this front.
And they're also under attack by ADL, and I've seen other people. I mean, obviously Ben Shapiro. So
yeah, it really is important to show solidarity with these demonstrators. And if you can, I would encourage you to get involved in local demonstrations in your area. Be careful. I know sometimes it's a little difficult because there have been reports that employers are watching people's social media activity on this front fairly carefully. So just make sure that you're in a place that you are okay with putting yourself out there like that. But even if you're not, there are ways to help behind the scenes and show solidarity to people, because I think there are a lot of folks that feel alone. I've spoken to Jewish friends behind the scenes who are afraid to say anything because of how their parents are going to react. One friend joked to me, I feel like I'm going to get written out of the family will based on what I say on this.
I mean, some of that's going to absolutely happen. And
Naomi Klein hit on it. There is a generational divide, I think. And there are young progressive Jews that don't want to be associated with an apartheid system, that don't want to be associated with a genocide that is ramping up at this moment. And those are the people that give me a lot of hope. And seeing that yesterday was the first moment of real, I would say, like a silver lining or some flicker of hope in the situation. So I can't thank everybody out there enough who put their bodies on the line and got arrested for this cause that could not be more important.